Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I am Andrew Destin, reporter for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. He's Matt Vensel, our Penguins beat reporter, and we're here once again to talk about some Penguins hockey. And since last time you and I met, Matt, the Penguins have gone 2-2, splitting a pair of games against the Maple Leafs with a road loss to the Canadiens in between before earning a crazy 6-4 win versus Minnesota Wild last night. I think you summarized things pretty well in your game story, so let's start there. In what was hardly a banner performance, as you said, for the Penguins. What did they do well, and where did they struggle on their way to a road victory there?
Yeah, I mean, it just was they've talked a ton about these incomplete performances, and they had another one last night here in Minnesota. They only had 4 shots in the first period. They needed a couple of soft goals on a backup goalie with Marc-Andre Fleury not playing for the Wild. They blew a 2-goal lead. I mean, it was a lot of the stuff that we've seen them do in their many of their recent losses, but they were able to pull together and get a win. The power play came up huge. They had a big 5-on-3 goal. Sidney Crosby bounced back, so it wasn't pretty. But right now, the Pens will take wins however they can, and to get one on the road, even against a struggling team, is pretty significant for this club.
Yeah, and it was Tristan Jarry who got the start and goal in last night's win. But like you said, it was hardly his best game of the season, and it seems like the month of November hasn't been particularly kind to him either. Which you kind of can't say the same about fellow goalie Casey DeSmith. What have you seen from those two this month? And is it fair to say that we're trending toward a 50-50 playing time split for them? Because in the month of November, it's kind of played out that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it'll be in the short term. Jari's really struggled when you look at goals saved above expected, which basically just looks at like, hey, this guy made a save where he shouldn't have, or this guy allowed a goal that he should have stopped. Jari is in the bottom 10 of the league in that category. So even last night, the advanced statistics say that maybe he should only let up 3 instead of 4. But he's struggling. Casey hasn't been great either, but he's certainly been better. And also, like, Tristan just kind of randomly let it slip out after his previous game that he's been dealing with some sort of injury. Just kind of offered it up, which you don't see a lot of that in hockey, where they kind of keep all that in-house. So that was noteworthy as well. I don't know what the problem is or how significant it is, but yeah, he's in a funk right now. We've seen this from him before. The Penguins still believe in him, but you can look back to how Mike Sullivan handled Matt Murray in previous years, where Murray scuffled a bit. He went to Casey or Tristan, he being Mike Sullivan, to let them, the other goalie, the starting goalie, work out the kinks in his game. So we're kind of seeing that right now. We've seen more starts for DeSmith over the last 2 weeks in Jari, and they're just trying to get him back on track behind the scenes with goalie coach Andy Chiodo, which is tricky though, because it's a pretty condensed schedule right now, a lot of travel, and they don't have a ton of practice time.
Right. And now turning things over to the offensive side of the puck, I wanted to ask you about the Penguins' top six, because in the Mike Sullivan era, we've seen it before. It hasn't been uncommon for him to shuffle up those top two lines. And we saw that again last night with Ricard Raquel. He was being bumped up to Crosby's line, and Brian Rust skated with Malkin's group. What did you think of that change up last night? And do you expect that to be a trend that we kind of see continuing forward here?
Yeah, we'll definitely see them flip-flop unless just things totally gel for both lines. In the past, we saw this happen, but it was more so like an effort to get the Malkin line going, because Malkin's had some struggles in recent years at 5-on-5. We would see Mike Sullivan take one of Sid's wingers and give it to Gino. This year it's been the inverse. Malkin's line has been the best line for the Penguins. They were very good when it was Zucker and Brian Rust. They were also very good when it was Zucker and Ricard Raquel. So it's interesting to see that flipped, where Mike Sullivan made this move to try to get his top line back on track because they were out for 5 goals against in the Toronto game. I think the Malkin line did okay, but you could definitely see the impact that Raquel had last night in Minnesota. I kind of look at him as like a highly skilled glue guy. I mean, he has 7 goals this year. Obviously, you can put the puck in the net a little bit, but he makes a lot of little plays all over the ice. And he made a play in the neutral zone that led to Sidney Crosby's first goal. So he gave him a boost. But I think throughout the year, we're going to see flip-flopping. And it sure feels like ultimately Mike Sullivan wants at the land where Rust is on that top line. That's what Sid likes. Those guys have done great things over the years, but he's not going to force it. And right now, I think it made sense to go back to the original lineup that they started the season with.
And speaking about those lines, we saw somebody make their season debut in Teddy Bluger. He came in against the Maple Leafs on Tuesday, got his first point of the year last night against the Wild. How does he look to you in his return to game competition after missing a big chunk of games to start off the year?
Well, I might be the president of the Teddy Bluger fan club, or maybe like the treasurer or something. I actually have a Bluger jersey on under this. No, I think Teddy's a great player. Obviously he's not a star for the Penguins, but he's so impactful and helps them in areas where they really need it. He's a very good defensive center. He's good in faceoffs. He's given their penalty kill a boost. And I think he's an underrated player offensively who plays that grind game and doesn't take a lot of chances. That's exactly what Sullivan wants to see from his team right now. So through 2 games, yeah, they've chipped in with some offense. We saw Ryan Poehling get a goal. That line could have got another one when Teddy Bluger sprung Josh Archibald for a breakaway. So they're giving the Penguins a little bit offensively, but defensively through 2 games, they haven't allowed a single high danger chance against per natural stat trick, and they're just kind of dominating the shot share. So obviously that's going to regress a little bit, but Bluger's been a big boost for both the fourth line and the PK. And I think Mike Sullivan put it well after last night's game. He was like basically, Bluger's the kind of guy that you don't really appreciate when he's in the lineup, and then you don't have him and you realize how much you need him, how important he is. So I thought that was a great quote, and I think it summed up Teddy Bluger well.
Yeah, getting those contributions on the fourth line, not something we've always seen from the Penguins, but they'll certainly take it while they can, right? But somebody who's been such a much more consistent participant on the offensive end, assuming all goes to plan, Malkin's going to be playing in his 1,000th game on Sunday, 1,000th career game when the Penguins take on the Blackhawks. You wrote extensively about his rookie season and his hot start to the year. If you haven't given that a read yet, it's definitely worth your time. Matt, what stood out to you the most when you were looking back on that beginning of his career and really over his career in general during his time here in Pittsburgh, which about 2 decades it seems?
Yeah, I mean, like this Penguin star players, I'm getting old too. I just turned 40. But, I'm from the Pittsburgh area. I remember being in college or soon after college, and it was just a really exciting time for hockey fans in the city of Pittsburgh when Sid came in, Malkin, Fleury. So I love looking back on those years and the late aughts, if you will. And yeah, I mean, it just was cool to talk to a lot of Malkin's former teammates and Malkin himself just about the transition and how he was a total unknown when he came over. I mean, sure, he was a number 2 pick. Scouts had him right there with Ovechkin in that draft, but still, like, you never knew how his skills were going to translate. You didn't know how he was going to adjust in North America. And I think that year was when everything really started to come together for the Penguins. I mean, a couple of years later, they won the cup, but some of the stories his teammates shared about just like the relationships that were built off the ice, that last years later had a lot to do with it. So it was fun. A couple of things that just stand out generally as Malkin approaches this milestone. Like, one, it's significant that he's doing it with the Penguins for a bunch of reasons, but I think it speaks to the fact that he's willing to cede the spotlight to Sidney Crosby often, and it says a lot about their relationship and also Malkin's drive to win. That he could have went somewhere else, even as recently as last summer, but he wanted to stick around because he loved the Penguins and he was comfortable kind of playing second fiddle many nights. And then, also the upside. I mean, his teammates talked about how there's moments there where they were like, wow, is Gino actually better than Sid? And it's just that upside, that extra gear that few, if any, players in this league have never been able to hit. I mean, you remember some of his big goals, like the spinning backhand goals or his 2009 playoffs. So it just was a lot of fun to revisit that. And, Sunday, knock on wood for him, it's going to be a special night for him in Chicago.
Yeah, definitely some exciting times there for the Penguins in the Igloo. Never got a chance to see a game there, but would have been a fun time for sure. I tipped off the remainder of the Penguins road trip a bit right there, but Pittsburgh will be back in action at Winnipeg on Saturday and play again on Sunday at Chicago. These are 2 teams in very different spots in the Central Division standings and the Western Conference as a whole. So, Matt, how do you think the Penguins stack up against both the Jets and the Blackhawks?
Yeah, Winnipeg is getting a little bit of momentum going there. I mean, I think, it's a tough place to play up there as well. So they'll have their hands full Saturday in Winnipeg. And then, same old story with the second half of a back-to-back on the road in Chicago. So, if they can salvage, 2-3 points out of these 2 games, I think that'll be, pretty significant for the Penguins. And, we talked about goaltending earlier. I mean, I think we can circle back there. Obviously the team has some kinks to work out, but they need to get good goaltending here this weekend from both of their goalies if they're going to come home happy. So I think that's one thing to watch there. I don't know how the games are going to be split, whether it's going to be DeSmith first, Jari second, or vice versa. We'll find out after Friday's practice, maybe. But goaltending is going to be significant here as they try to wrap up this road trip successfully.
Awesome stuff, Matt. Anything else there you have for the group before we call it here?
No. We'll see. We got the annual Thanksgiving Eve game at the arena, which is always fun. But yeah, I'm looking forward to some turkey. So happy Thanksgiving, everyone, if we don't chat before Thursday.
Excellent. Well, I'll let you enjoy the rest of your time there in the Twin Cities before the Penguins are back in action. And that's all the time we've got for today's breakdown of Penguins hockey. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay updated with our latest content. If you haven't already, check out our subscription deal in the description below. $6 for 6 months of access. There's plenty of sports news to keep up with, and you don't want to miss it. Matt, thanks so much for your time, and we'll see all you again next time.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you liked the video, please like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you enjoyed it on Apple Podcasts, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. For 6 months of digital access to post-gazette.com for just $6, click the link down in the description.